placenta where the blood is coming out, that is absorbed and it goes into the mother circulation. ECV. What is ECV? ECV is external cephalic version. External cephalic version means sometimes what happens, the say baby is on breech presentation, okay, and you want to make it cephalic. So from external means from outside, cephalic means you catch up the whole head and try to bring it down. So that is external cephalic version. That time some bleeding can occur, which can be absorbed in mother, which can go into the mother circulation. Chordocentesis. Chordocentesis. What is chordocentesis? That means sometimes you try to take out, as you can see in this, sometimes this is the umbilical cord. Okay, sometimes you put a needle into the umbilical cord and try to take out the blood. That is what is known as chordocentesis or fetal blood sampling. In that sample, okay, fetal blood into mother. Then CVS. CVS stands for chorionic villi sampling. That means you put a needle or a cannula through the vagina into the chorionic villi and try to take out some tissues for some investigations. That time also this thing can happen. Then another condition where this can happen is amniocentesis. So you see this baby, as you can see this baby. So there is a amniotic fluid. Baby is floating inside the amniotic fluid. So you put a needle inside and take out the amniotic fluid. So this condition, this process is called amniocentesis. During that time also there may be some puncture somewhere where the fetal blood again can go into the mother's circulation. The other causes of fetal-maternal hemorrhage is, as you can see in this figure, what happens? This is the uterus, this is the tube. In the tube, you see is a pregnancy, what is known as ectopic pregnancy. Okay, so this ectopic pregnancy cannot sustain there. So either it has to rupture or it has to be aborted. So once it ruptures, so what happens? The fetal blood that goes into the peritoneum of the mother, and from there it is absorbed. The other conditions which give rise is severe preeclampsia. While doing a cesarean section, the chances are there, you are taking out the baby and the placenta, the blood may trickle down into the peritoneal cavity. So during the cesarean section, and sometimes while manually removing the placenta, if sometimes there is adherent or there may be retained placenta inside the uterine cavity. So while taking that out, there may be leakage. And lastly, silent feto-maternal hemorrhage, where you don't find any such conditions, but still you find that there is some amount of blood which has gone into the mother circulation. That means silent fetal maternal hemorrhage does occur without any one of these things. So now what happens? How this problem occurs? Then as I said, this condition, the RBCs, those RBCs are, or the blood is going into the mother. Okay, so following after the RBCs have entered into the mother circulation, what happens? What is the reaction of the mother to this RBCs, Rh positive RBCs? See, there is a formation of antibodies or immunoglobulin. So what happens? Initially, there are two reactions. One is a primary reaction, other is a secondary reaction. In the primary reaction, what happens? In response to this Rh positive cells, then it start producing immunoglobulins. But the immunoglobulin which is produced is immunoglobulin M. This immunoglobulin M, number one, this is produced slowly. That means it takes about 6 weeks to about 6 months to produce this antibodies. Secondly, because immunoglobulin M, its molecular weight is much bigger. So though these immunoglobulins or the antibodies have been formed in mother, this is not able to go back to the fetus through the placenta. So this remains in mother circulation, and hence baby is not affected. Though mother has made the antibodies, but these antibodies are not able to go back to the fetus. It is not able to cross the placenta. After this, what happens in later stage? In the secondary reaction, the immunoantibodies which are produced, they are IgG. IgG, they are rapidly produced, number one, and number second, they cross the placenta. So from mothers, this antibody cross the placenta and enters the fetal circulation, this antibodies. So, and these antibodies, then what they do, they adhere to the antigen site on the surface of the fetal RBCs and causes destruction of these RBCs. Okay, so these RBCs are destroyed, and if the RBCs are destroyed, then what happens? There is a anemia. Main problem, what's happening is anemia. So RBCs are being destroyed, fetal RBCs are destroyed, fetal become anemic, and followed by there is a hypoxia. Since there are RBCs are responsible for carrying the oxygen, so they are not able to carry the oxygen. So first thing, this antibodies cause destruction of the fetal RBCs, leading to anemia, and because of anemia, there is a hypoxia. So heart has to do more work with a few number of cells. It has to carry the oxygen. That means heart has to work much more. So what happens, because heart is working much more, it may go into failure. So this is a diagrammatic representation of what I was telling you. So you can see this side is the fetus and this side is the mother. Both are separated by this placenta. Okay. So this blood RBCs from the fetus, which are Rh positive, what happens, because of feto-maternal hemorrhage, they go into the mother side. So what is the primary response? As you see, within 6 weeks to 6 months, these antibodies are being produced. The antibodies which are produced are IgM, or large one. The molecular weight is large one. Okay. So these IgM antibodies, they are not able to cross this placenta. So it remains in the mother, and that is cleared by the macrophages in mother. So nothing happens here in the primary response. So what is the implication of this? In the first pregnancy, so this baby fetus is not affected because these antibodies are not able to cross. So normally the first pregnancy is not affected, but subsequent pregnancy, they are affected. So this is what you are seeing is later one. Say in the second pregnancy, what's happening? This RBCs, same way they cross because of feto-maternal hemorrhage, they cross over and this enters the mother circulation. Even with the small amount of RBCs, there is a rapid production of antibodies. These antibodies are not IgM, but they are IgG. Okay, so these antibodies are produced, and these antibodies, anti-D, are able to cross the placenta and they enter the fetal circulation. And as you can see, this fetal circulation, in the fetal circulation, they are destroying the RBCs. So because of this destruction of the RBCs, so fetal will have anemia. And because of anemia, hypoxia. Because of hypoxia, stress over the heart, and patient may go into, fetus may go into heart failure. So this is in summary, what's happening. See, this is a Rh negative woman, and this is a Rh negative man. So this lady, she conceives the baby, she conceives a baby which is Rh positive. She is Rh negative. This is Rh positive baby. So this cells from the Rh positive, what's happening? Okay, the cell from the Rh positive baby, this enters the woman into the woman. Okay, bloodstream. So woman is producing, as you can see, green things, is producing antibodies. Okay, and these antibodies in the subsequent pregnancy, these antibodies enters into the fetal circulation. This is what you can see in this diagrammatic representation. So what happens now? This Rh antibodies, okay, Rh antibodies, this coat the RBCs of the fetus. Red cell is okay. The red cells of the fetus is covered by the antibodies which have come from the mother. Okay, then they cause the destruction of the fetal cells by the fetal reticuloendothelial cells. So, fetal endothelial cells, reticuloendothelial cells is destroying these RBCs. This leads to fetal anemia. Fetal anemia, then what happens? Because of the hypoxia, this stimulates the erythropoietin. When there is a less of oxygen, so it stimulates the further production of the erythropoietin. So normally in the medullary system, the RBCs are synthesized inside the medulla. But now what's happening? Because there is a severe deficiency of oxygen, more RBCs are required. So extramedullary synthesis of RBCs occurs. So where is this extramedullary other than from the medulla of the bones? This is being produced in the liver and in the spleen. Okay, so what happens? They get in large. Spleen becomes big, the liver becomes big, then the liver is inside the capsule. So what happens? Because the cells are increasing and there is a capsule is there, so there is a tension, pressure increases, which leads to hepatic cell failure. So the liver cell, they are responsible for making protein. So they are not able to, because of the hepatic cell failure, they are not able to produce protein. So there will be hypoproteinemia. And because of the pressure, there will be increased intrahepatic pressure. It can lead also to portal hypertension. So liver is affected much. So what happens once the liver is affected? Then there is a ascites. And as I said, because of the hypoxia, the heart is also excessively working and goes into failure. So what happens in case of a heart failure or hypoproteinemia? In this condition, what happens? There is a ascites. That means the fetal peritoneum is filled with water, that is ascites. Then there is a placenta is working extra, so the size of the placenta increases. There is a generalized edema. The skin is full of water. So there is a generalized edema. Then you can see that there may be polyhydramnios and all the with ascites, then can give rise to also collection of water into the pleura, that is pleural effusion, then pericardial effusion. So all those sacs, they are filled with water, skin is filled with water. So what is the condition? That is known as hydrops. That means this fetus is full of water. That's known as hydrops fetalis. The same thing has been shown in the diagram here. But it has been seen. See, that means what I have told you, if you go by that, so any woman who has got Rh negative baby and she is Rh negative, she should develop this condition. But it has been seen that number of women who has got this condition, she is negative, baby is positive, in spite of all these things, she doesn't, the baby is fine. So why? That means everybody does not develop this antibodies against those Rh antigens. Why? There is a certain condition, because this depends upon number of factors. And one of the factor is protection if ABO incompatibility. As we said, blood group is of two types. One is a ABO group, other is a Rh group. Okay. So if there is an incompatibility of the ABO group, that means they are of not same group, then what happens? We'll come to that a little later on. Secondly, what is the strength of the Rh antigen? All the Rh antigens which are present over the RBC, they are not of same antigenicity. Some are strong, some are weak. So it depends upon what is the antigenicity of this antigen. That means how is the stimulus. Next is how much amount of blood, Rh positive blood, has gone into Rh negative mother. So if it is very small, it may not give rise to this. Or if the amount is too much, then she develops this problem. Okay. So, and lastly, there are some immunological non-responder. That means whatever amount of Rh antigen, Rh positive cells goes into the mother, they just don't respond. So they are immunologically non-responder. So it depends upon all these factors whether the mother will develop this condition or not. Everybody does not develop this problem. So what happens if the blood group is incompatible? Okay, suppose red blood cells is easily destroyed and it will not reach to the immunological component if they are of different. So the risk of sensitization after ABO incompatibility pregnancy is only 2%. If that means the ABO group of the baby is different from ABO group of the mother, then whenever this RBCs enters the mother circulation, they are destroyed. And chances of developing this sensitization is only 2% if they are of a different group. So what happens, say this Rh positive fetal cell that goes into the mother circulation, and in mother circulation, if they are of different group, so mother's reticuloendothelial system, this destroys this RBCs. And so they are not able to act as an antigen for quite some time. So let's show you here diagram. Suppose this mother is O. Okay, so who has got O negative antigen, we will have antigen antibodies, that is anti-A antibodies will be there in her. Now what happens if the baby is Rh, if the baby is Rh positive. Okay, so this Rh positive cells, this enters the mother's through the placenta, fetal-maternal hemorrhage, it is leads to the ORH negative mother. So, but her blood has got antibodies against this B positive cells, so it will destroy it. Okay, same way, if it is A, the blood group of the baby is A positive, then if it goes there, then it will be A group, and there is a E is there, and it will destroy it. So these cells are destroyed. But suppose it is of same group, then what happens? Suppose the O positive RBCs have reached to this mother, then these cells are not destroyed because there is no incompatibility. So it will keep on circulating inside the mother for the total 3 months, about 120 days, and it will keep working as a antigen, and hence antibodies will be produced. So this RH, other than RH, this ABO compatibility or incompatibility is very important. If it is compatible, these RBCs are floating inside the mother circulation for 3 months and producing antibodies. But if they are incompatible, ABO incompatible, then these cells will be destroyed in no time. So the amount of antigen or the duration these antigens are available to the mother is very less. So as I said, most of the time, this in the first initially I told you that what happens, this even if these things are not there, those conditions I have told you like abortion and ectopic pregnancy, etc., there is a silent transfer of RBCs are there. What is known as silent feto-maternal hemorrhage is there. It has been seen that about 7% in case of in the first trimester, about 7% this transmission occurs. while in second trimester, about 14% this transfer or feto-maternal hemorrhage, silent hemorrhage occurs. And in the third trimester, it's about 29%. That's the maximum amount of transfer. Fetal RBCs are transferred in the last trimester, 7, 14, and 29. Sir, how much amount? I said the volume of the transfer is also very important, as I said. So how much blood is required to produce this isoimmunization? It has been seen that 0.1 ml of RBCs, not total blood, it is the RBCs, 0.1 ml is sufficient to produce sensitization in about 1% of cases. And if 0.5 to 1 ml of RBCs are transferred, it can give rise to about 25% isoimmunization. And if it is more than 5 ml of RBCs, this can give rise to about 65% of isoimmunization or sensitization. So what happens if this, as I said, if this isoimmunization occurs? So what the first thing, the main and the commonest complication which is happening is congenital anemia of the newborn. So the baby may be alive, but once it comes out, the baby, as I said, there is a anemia because of the destruction of RBCs. There is a anemia. So congenital anemia, when the baby is born, you find the baby is severely anemic. Secondly, if it is more than that, then what happens? Then hydrops fetalis takes place. I told you about hydrops fetalis. That means after anemia, the body of the baby fetus is all full of water. I'll show you how the hydrops fetalis looks like. And after hydrops fetalis, what happens? The baby may die. So there is either intrauterine fetal death with stillbirth, or the baby, once it is born, is dead. So it may happen. So anemia is followed by hydrops fetalis, and it may lead to intrauterine fetal death or a stillbirth occurs. So one is this anemia. Secondly is other complication other than this destruction of RBCs is jaundice. So jaundice, so the baby which is born is not jaundiced, but within 24 hours, it becomes jaundiced. So there is a jaundice in the neonate. And what happens if this jaundice is very high? Then what happens? This jaundice is because of excessive serum bilirubin, because with the destruction of the hemoglobin, the serum bilirubin is being released. And if this serum bilirubin is very high in children, in the neonate, then what happens? This crosses the brain and enters the brain. So there is a blood-brain barrier. So if it is less than 20 milligram per 100 ml, then normally it does not cross this blood-brain barrier. But if it is more than that, it will cross and it can lead to damage to the brain, what is known as neonatal kernicterus. What happens in this condition? The body is but hypertonic. There is a lethargy, that baby will find is lethargic. This may lead to hearing loss. There may be cerebral palsy, and even if that survives and goes on, there may be learning disability. So this is how a baby, a hydrops fetalis baby looks like. If you see carefully, see what happens. The abdomen is bloated. Why it is bloated? Because of the ascitic fluid. The abdomen, the peritoneum is filled with ascitic fluid. And along with that, the heart is covered with pericardial effusion. Heart is outside the heart, it is filled with water. It is known as pericardial effusion. And even outside the lungs, in the pleura, is full of water. Then you see the body is bloated out. This is because of the edema. There is a water inside the skin, below the skin. So there is a generalized edema. And as I said, because the RBCs are being produced where? Because of the erythropoietin, RBCs are being produced outside the medulla. So that means liver and spleen. So they also get enlarge. So this overall picture, if you see, so this is how a Hydrops fetalis baby looks like. So what are the signs that the baby which is inside the fetus, inside the baby which is inside the uterus is having fetal anemia? So the things with the certain things you can find out with the help of this, like polyhydramnios. As I said, the amniotic fluid inside the uterus, if you see, it is increased. You will find the liver and the spleen of the fetus is enlarged. Placenta is thick. And because heart is working extra, so you will find the atrial size of the heart, atrium of the heart is enlarged. And fetal hydrops, because of the severe anemia and cardiac failure, so this is giving rise to ascites, pleural effusion, pericardial effusion, and subcutaneous edema. So all these signs can be detected with the help of ultrasonography. So what are the features of Hydrops fetalis? As I said, first there will be, because why the Hydrops fetalis will develop, in which case where there is a severe anemia. Then there is a congestive cardiac failure. Heart is failing because of the excessive load. Then this cardiac failure will give rise to ascites, pleural and pericardial effusion, subcutaneous and scalp edema, placental enlargement, hepatosplenomegaly. All this give rise to stillbirth. And with the help of ultrasound, you can find out if there is a fluid in the pleura, in the peritoneal cavity, in the pericardial cavity, and because of the edema, you will find a halo around the scalp, around the head. What is also head. You'll find a looks like somebody likes Buddha-like posture. Then the placenta is large and liver and spleen. You will find with the help of ultrasound that they are enlarged. So you can diagnose even before the delivery, before the which I was telling you is about the. So in the less severe form, give rise to a less severe form of hemolytic disease. And these babies, when they born, as I said, they are without any jaundice. But after within 24 hours, they become jaundiced. Why? We'll come and we'll discuss why they are, when they are born, they don't have a jaundice, but after that, why they become jaundiced. You see in this diagram. So this is a, as you can see, this is an incompatible fetus. In incompatible fetus, what's happening? The RBCs are being destroyed by the antibodies. Okay. So once they are destroyed, so in the fetal spleen, the hemoglobin is released. And once the hemoglobin is broken down, then there is a indirect, or it is also known as conjugated, being excreted. It has to be converted into direct bilirubin. So this is done by what? This change from indirect bilirubin to or unconjugated bilirubin to conjugated bilirubin is done with the help of liver. So it crosses this bilirubin, indirect bilirubin, this crosses the placenta, comes into the mother circulation. In the mother circulation, this is converted into direct bilirubin, which is harmless. Okay, because there is a why, and how this is converted into direct bilirubin in mother, because mother's liver has got a enzyme, glucuronil transferase. So this transferase enzyme, this converts the indirect into direct, and then that is excreted through the mother. In the mother's urine, this is excreted out. But what happens once the baby is born? This that it doesn't, once the baby is born, so since it has been excreted in the mother's circulation, so baby is not jaundiced. But once the baby is born, so it cannot cross over to the placenta. Now it is on its own. So this indirect bilirubin, this goes into the fetal liver. And into the infant liver, what happens? They don't have this enzyme, glucuronil transferase is not there. So it is not able to convert this harmful bilirubin into harmless bilirubin, or unconjugated to conjugated, it is not able to do, and hence the baby which is born, that becomes jaundice within 24 hours. Serum bilirubin keeps on increasing in these babies. As I said, in case the concentration of serum bilirubin is more than 20 milligram per 100 ml, then this crosses the brain. As you see, then this from the blood circulation, it comes into the brain, what is known as kernel icterus. And you will find the baby is jaundiced, the eyes are all yellow, skin is yellow, and if you test the blood, as I said, the problem can occur whether that child, as I said, child may become hypertonous, lethargic, the brain can be damaged, he may not be able to hear, learning disability can occur, and even it can lead to cerebral palsy. So all this complication can occur because of excessive serum bilirubin, because of jaundice. Okay. So now let's come, as we said, that patient had come to you, has been referred to you from the OP, and then what's happening now, what you are going to do in that patient. So once any patient comes to you in your antenatal clinic, you are supposed to do the screening. So mother's blood is taken. In all cases, in a first time, whenever they come to you for the first visit, then what you have to do, you have to do the screening of the mother. So what you do, you take the mother's blood and send it for AVO grouping and RH type. Okay. So if it turns out to be RH negative mother, okay, then next what you do, you try to find out what is the blood group of the father. If father is also RH negative, mother is also RH negative, so the child is bound to be RH negative. So there is not much of a problem. But if father is RH positive, mother is RH negative, there are chances that the baby may be either RH positive or RH negative. Okay. So as I said initially, if the father is of heterozygous for RHD, then there are 50% chances that the baby is either RH positive or RH negative. If but father is homozygous, that means both the genes are dominant, then baby is bound to be RH positive. Okay. So once you do that, if you find the father is RH positive, mother is RH negative, then next thing what you do is an indirect Holmes test, basically to find out whether there is any antibodies are present or not. That is what is indirect Holmes test. First you find out the blood group of the mother, then you try to get what is the blood group of the father, and if it is a positive, then you ask for indirect Holmes test. So what are the investigations you are going to do for such a thing? So what you do is as I said, gold standard in such patient is a indirect Holmes test. What you do in this, you take out the serum of the mother and in that you add some RBCs which are already Rh positive. Okay, so this serum which are containing the antibodies, they will go and adhere to the Rh antigen, and after this they are washed and they are suspended in the Coombs serum. So in the Coombs serum, if it is a agglutination will take place once those antibodies and antigen are present, and in various dilution you can find out. So you find out what is the titer at which this agglutination is taking place. So next important standard and gold standard test is indirect Coombs test. Direct Coombs test is done after delivery. So once you have found out it is a with the Coombs test, it is positive. What is the titer? The next investigation in. So what is in ultrasonography gestational age of the fetus? Because the will depend upon the gestational age. So in the very first visit, you must find out what is the gestational age of the fetus. Second, so with the help of ultrasound, we find out the exact gestational age. What next is you try to detect the hydrops at the earliest. How? If you find any evidence of ascites, pericardial effusion, pleural effusion, skin edema, that will give you indication that baby is developing into hydrops. Other thing, what you can see the size of the placenta. In case of this problem, the size of the placenta will be increased. Other thing which can give you the indication of this complication occurring is hepatosplenomegaly. So these various, with the help of ultrasound, you can find out the baby which is inside is being affected because of this condition or not. So during ultrasound, you can see in this the this is what you're seeing. P is the placenta. Okay, so this is the placenta. See, in this case, placenta is quite thick. The other thing, what you are seeing is this is the abdomen. This is the abdomen. This is the abdomen of the fetus. You can see the skin is thick. This is the spleen. This is the liver. Okay, and this is the water around it, amniotic fluid, which is increased. That means there is a ascites. You can see the liver is increased, spleen is increased, and this is the amniotic fluid. Amniotic fluid gives indication that there is a also polyhydramnios. This is another ultrasound photograph image. You can see here. You can clearly see that the is what you are seeing is basically is the fetal ascites. This is the liver, and around that you see, and this is the abdominal wall. Between them, there is a lot of fluid is there. So the patient has, this baby fetus has got fetal ascites. What is this? This you can see here. The skin is there. The skin is thick because of the subcutaneous fluid. So body wall edema is there, and so this baby is hydropic fetus. So first thing, as I said, is the gold standard is, I said, indirect Coombs test. Second is ultrasonography. And what is third and the most important is Doppler study. What you do in the Doppler study, you find in the Doppler study, you see the velocity of the blood. This is basically you're seeing the velocity of the blood inside the vessel. So what is this Doppler study? MCA PSV. MCA is middle cerebral artery. That is in the brain. This vessel is taken. is the Doppler study of this vessel, middle cerebral artery is done, and what you are saying is PSV is peak systolic volume. That means, peak systolic velocity. So what happens as the baby is developing anemia, the RBCs are being destroyed, so blood is getting further diluted. And because of the further dilution, the viscosity keeps on decreasing. And because of the decreased in viscosity, the velocity increases. So this is a earlier days, what you used to find out whether the baby fetus is affected or not. We used to do amniocentesis and all those things. They were all invasive method. But here, there is no invasive method. With the help of velocimetry, Doppler studies, without any invasion, you can find out what is the condition of the baby. So number one, so it is non-invasive, very useful. And secondly, mother is not put to any risk. Whenever you used to do any invasive technique, there is always a danger of some amount of fetal blood leaking into mother's circulation. But because of this thing, so this has already overtaken all those investigations. Those invasive techniques are not done anymore. Nowadays, everybody does is Doppler study. So this is how what you are seeing with how the Doppler study is done. This is what you are seeing is the head cranium, and in the cranium, what you are seeing is the blood vessels. So the red and blue. Red doesn't mean artery, and blue doesn't mean veins. Basically, the red one is the blood which is coming towards the transducer, and blue is the blood is going away from the transducer. With the help of this Doppler studies, what you are seeing is this sort of a waveform. See what you are saying, this is the systolic. This is systolic and diastolic velocity. So with the help of this Doppler waveform, you can find out, then you make a chart. And if, as you see in this chart, if you in the chart, if it is in the more than 1.29, that shows is a mild anemia. If it is more than 1.5, that shows it is a moderate to severe anemia, and you have to intervene. So by this way, you know what is the condition of the fetus. So this is basically today the management I will take in my next class. Thank you.